The time is 6 p.m. and the regular meeting of the City Council of Denison, Texas is now in session. Our invocation would be given this evening by Todd Cateau, pastor of Park Avenue Church of Christ.
Let's pray. Father God, we come to you this evening giving you thanks for all that you do for us. We give you thanks for this day, for this hour, for this very moment. And Father, we pray that we would be good stewards of every moment that you give to us. Father, be with this group of men and women. Help them to steward well the responsibilities that you have given to them. We pray that you would grant them wisdom and compassion and understanding. Father, we pray that you would just bless our land, bless our city. Father, we pray especially for those that are hurting financially, spiritually, emotionally, that you would use us as your instruments of peace and hope in this world. Father, thank you for all the gifts that you give to us. Father, help us always to seek you for our guidance and our direction in everything that we do. We pray your Spirit to be upon us as we serve you. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
We will be led in the pledge this evening by Officer Jorge Molina.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
This evening, we have a very special introduction to make. Mr. Rex, would you like to introduce our new Managing Director of Communications and Engagement?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I want to introduce you to Aaron Warner, who recently joined the City of Denison as our Managing Director of Communications and Engagement. Aaron comes to us from the City of McKinney, where he has many years of experience working in the Main Street Department, lots of projects down there. So we are excited for Aaron to join Team Denison and specifically our executive team who will help lead us forward. Aaron will be overseeing the Main Street Department, our Tourism and Convention and Visitors Bureau Department, and Community Engagement as well. So welcome aboard, Aaron, and we're very glad to have you on Team Denison.
Yeah, for sure. And just real quick, I just want to say a few words. Mayor, Council, Mr. City Manager, I'm thrilled to officially get to meet each of you, even though it's in this setting, and I look forward to building this relationship with you over time. Like Judd said, I'll be stepping in as the new Managing Director of Communications and Engagement, overseeing those three divisions. I come to you with after about 7 years with the City of McKinney, specifically in the Main Street Department. I'm also the current president of the Texas Downtown Association, which is where I had the pleasure of meeting Donna and even Mayor Gott at our conference while serving in that capacity. Moving forward, I see nothing but up for the City of Denison. That was what attracted me to this position, and specifically for me back home. If you don't know, my roots go back to Denison from when my parents owned 400 West Main all the way until I was in high school. I attended St. Luke's as a kindergartner and then continued on from there. So for me, coming back in this professional manner, I'm coming back to work in my hometown. I can say with just about 2.5 weeks under my belt that the culture in this city hall is extremely positive, and I'm so impressed by every single person that we work with. And so we have the right leadership in place. There's nowhere but up to go from here, and so I'm excited to be here with each of you. If you want to continue this conversation, meet me, or have any questions for me, please reach out. My phone and email are always available for you. Thank you.
Well, Aaron, welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we are certainly glad to have you as part of our team, and I know that it's going to be exciting moving forward. So
Absolutely. Thank you all.
good to have you. some proclamations this evening, and I'm going to ask Miss Donna Dow, our Main Street Director, to meet me at the podium, and we'll talk about Small Business Saturday. Make sure that I have the right one here, Donna. I don't want to be giving you a proclamation for a puppet.
I'm not qualified for that.
No, that's right. So, whereas the government of Denison, Texas celebrate our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 30.7 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all firms with paid employees in the United States and are responsible for 64.9% of net new jobs created from 2000 to 2018. And whereas small businesses employ 47.3% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, 62% of U.S. small businesses reported that they need to see customer spending return to pre-COVID levels, don't we all, by the end of 2020 in order to stay in business. 65% of the U.S. small business owners say it would be most helpful for their businesses to have their regulars return and start making purchases again. And 3/4 of U.S. consumers are currently looking for ways to shop small and support their community. And whereas 96% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agree that shopping at small, independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. And 97% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agree that small businesses are essential to their community. And whereas 95% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday reported the day makes them want to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas Denison, Texas supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Janet Gott, Mayor of the City of Denison, do hereby proclaim November 28, 2020 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community to support our small businesses and participate in the Donut Hole Stroll and $500 gift certificate giveaway to support downtown merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Signed, Janet Gott, Mayor of Denison, Texas. Where's Renee?
She's out there.
Oh, she's out there. She's not in. Okay, Renee, open the door. What should we do?
Shop Denison.
Shop local, right? So everybody come out and support Small Business Saturday in downtown Denison.
And
There you go, ma'am.
I bet curbside would be available if you need it.
I bet curbside would be available. No contact pickup. Just pop that trunk and we'll just put whatever you need right there in the trunk of your car.
Thank you.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right, Donna? All right. Okay. Now we have a most fun proclamation. And if Mr. Steve O. Black would join me. There's a lot of creativity in this man, in case you don't know. So, all right, Steve. Whereas Steve O. Black single-handedly constructed the giant puppet Jigon for Denison Dance Academy's first production of the Nutcracker, as well Drosselmeyer. And whereas Steve O. Black has supervised or built over 30 giant puppets during the last 10 years. And whereas Steve O. Black, along with others, have instigated the creation of the Sunday Morning Art and Coffee Club, which has met every Sunday for 16 years, missing only one Sunday because of before COVID-19. And whereas Steve O. Black, aka Reverend Burnett Down, has been reported to have issued numerous Skitty Street prostitution certificates during the Dock Holiday, Saints or Sinner festivals. And whereas Steve O. Black has prodded, cajoled, and gently encouraged countless students of all ages down the path of creative art. And whereas Steve O. Black has introduced the entire Texoma community to the world of ever-evolving creativity and cultural arts. And whereas Steve O. Black was the driving force behind creating Denison Arts Council Dia de Muertos Festival. Now therefore, I, Janet Dodd, Mayor of Denison, Texas, do hereby proclaim November 16th, 2020 as Steve O. Black Giant Puppet Day in honor of his Skitty Street Puppet Company. Signed, Janet Dodd, Mayor, the City of Denison.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you for all you have done for our Main Street in particular, and all of the creative energy that you put into our community. Thank you so very much.
It's just not myself, it's a village here. And Mary Karen here, Barb Stewart, the SMAC group, various individuals throughout Denison, Sherman, Texoma area. They're the ones that really deserves this. But thank you.
Well, there is a village that takes a leader.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this point in each council meeting, time is set aside that citizens may speak on action items listed on the agenda. In order to speak, a request to speak card must be completed and returned to the city clerk prior to reaching this public comment section on the agenda. So we have two cards tonight, one for a public hearing, and Mr. Stevens, do you want to speak now, or do you want to speak when the item comes up on the agenda?
Ma'am, I'd like to wait.
Okay, very good. Then there being no further public comments, we'll proceed. First item, the consent agenda.
Mayor, make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
There is a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Doty and a second by Councilmember Hander. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 5A, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and take action on an ordinance amending the zoning of 4901 Texoma Parkway, Denison, Texas, from commercial to light industrial, case number 2020-106Z. Mr. Medina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you all again. This is item 2020-106Z. The applicant's requesting to rezone the property from commercial to light industrial. The 2018 comprehensive plan shows this area to be developed as commercial with some light industrial where appropriate. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval on the 27th of October. City staff does recommend approval. This is the subject property outlined in yellow with some blue. As you can see, it's just north of 691, south of where Jake's Place is now, as a landmark. Here's the property again, outlined in yellow. The purple is commercial, the dark purple is commercial, while the lighter purple is light industrial. So rezoning this particular piece to light industrial will help match the surrounding zoning that's also there. However, if we take a little bit closer look at what's nearby, we already see some light industrial uses that are engaged in that commercial zoning. So as outlined in my staff report, I outlined RV repair, transmission shops, auto body repair, car lots. I think there's even a wrecker service further down. So that type of light industrial use or zoning kind of fits with the neighborhood or what's already existing. The applicant is here. Mr. Chris Vickery is pursuing a new professional services light industrial business park. We're currently reviewing his site plan, his civil engineering plan, and his plat, and have provided comment on those already. Simply to clarify exactly what's going on, he wants to do a multi-building use or tenant use facility that could potentially house either some sort of maybe a boat repair, could do like a pesticide, herbicide services, maybe various electricians or plumbers. The applicant noticed that there's kind of a hole in our market where if you're a professional in an industrial use, you don't really have a particular place to rent from, and so he's trying to create a nice facility for those types of businesses. So this is the preliminary site plan that we've been looking at. Now tonight we're not approving the site plan, we're still reviewing this and have provided comments. Some of the things that we're working on are going to be screening, making sure the fire lane is wide enough. The applicant might have to do some sort of detention and accommodate for drainage, so we're looking at that as well. Dumpster locations, et cetera. And this is the front facade. This is just a rendering. So as you can see, they're wanting to do stone masonry, even though they're not required under state law, which is a big plus, to really dress up the site. So we do recommend approval. This is a public hearing, and I'm present for any questions that you may have. And again, I'd like to point out, so is the applicant.
Questions for Mr. Medina?
So if this was going to be used for boat repair or auto repair, something like that, would it require a conditional use permit beyond what we're doing? So we would get to revisit it?
That's correct.
For screening purposes and that kind of thing for the cars?
Absolutely, yeah. So if looking at our use table, we just feel like light industrial is more appropriate for generally, like a mechanic, whether it's an electrician or a plumber. However, if somebody does want to come in that's a higher, more heavier industrial use, they will be required to get a CUP on a tenant basis.
Okay.
Further questions for Mr. Medina? This is a public hearing. Mr. Chris Vickery has indicated that he'd like to speak on this agenda item. State your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Chris Vickery, 1003 Hills Creek Drive in McKinney, Texas. I've been in Denison investing here since '98. I started out with homes, moved to multifamily, and just had a lot of the folks, subcontractors that I dealt with, would ask me, you know, I have a Terminex company or I have a carpet cleaning company. I need a spot where I can park my truck and keep my chemicals, and I don't want to rent the local gas station that got converted to just a little spot to park something. So we noticed in the market there really wasn't a spot that was good for them to lease that's similar to other things that would, you know, other tenants that he could also lease from. So we found this piece of property, worked with the seller, and have been working with the city and have nothing but praise to speak of. Bill Medina's done more work for me than I need to put him on my staff almost, honestly, to get us to this point. We're very close with the engineer. We will be doing a detention pond and think that we'll be able to provide a product for new coming entrepreneurs to the city of Denison that are looking for this kind of flexed industrial space. Just here for questions if you have anything for me.
Questions for Mr. Vickery? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? There being none, the public hearing is closed. Discussion from council. A motion?
Mayor, I move to adopt the ordinance changing the zoning of the subject properties from commercial to light industrial zoning district.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Crawley and a second by Councilmember Spiegel. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 5B, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and take action on an ordinance approving a conditional use permit for the use of a bar for urban bourbon located at 421 West Main Street, Denison, Texas, 75020, case number 2020-114CUP. Mr. Medina.
Good evening again. It's case number 2020-114 CUP. The applicant's requesting a conditional use permit to operate a bar in our historic downtown. 2018 comprehensive plan shows this area to be developed as a downtown, so some of that nightlife entertainment, that's well in line with what our comprehensive plan shows. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval on the 10th of November. We've notified all property owners within 200 feet. City staff does recommend approval. This is the subject property here on the 400 block on the north side. It's the building on the left next to 419. This is the layout of the ground floor here. As you can see, you have the bar towards the bottom of your screen with other lounge and seating area. You also have a stage towards the front. So in reviewing our narrative and the layout, we feel that, and of course our comprehensive plan, we feel that having a bar operate downtown is well within the realm of what should be in our downtown entertainment district. So we recommend approval. Just to go a little bit more in detail on the actual project here itself, the applicant's aiming at doing top shelf bourbon and dessert bar with offering live music and craft cocktails. The applicant, Ms. Rhonda Bourne, who is here tonight, and is looking at doing also maybe a cigar lounge on the patio, which under our current ordinance, there is an exception for a patio as an open area. She's also received Historic Preservation Board approval to do various facade improvements. This also includes repainting the building, adding the addition of a fence with a gate, additional signage, lighting, and really cleaned up the building. If you go to the rear today, it looks, it's a significant improvement. The hours of operation consist of Thursday 4:30 p.m. to 12 midnight, Friday and Saturday 4:30 to 2 a.m., close the rest of the week. One of the things that staff looked at was deliveries. So, as we're starting to grow downtown and become more vibrant, really revitalized, we want to make sure that a lot of our deliveries aren't clogging up our main street and preserving some of that walkability and some of our vehicular traffic. So in my staff report that we recommend that all deliveries either occur on Fannin, I think it's Woodard is the next street to the north, or on Burnett. I guess in downtime, the alley could be utilized, but we still have to make sure that our garbage vehicles can still get through. Just to wrap up here, the applicant is also showing to, not in the current phase, but in a future phase, later down the road, have either a mobile food vendor to the rear of the property. That's not shown in the layout in your packet, but visiting the site, there should be adequate room and screening to provide something like that. So we recommend approval, and I'm present for any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Medina?
Yes, I'd like to ask one question on the deliveries, where you say that we recommend on the avenues. Is there, my concern is recommend instead of required, because recommended doesn't always mean that's going to be required. So is there something that maybe we could go back and look at or get the agreement with the owners to say all deliveries are going to be made on the side streets rather than blocking up? Because there's some other retail places in there. And since the place isn't open till 4:30, my thought is there's going to be a lot of deliveries while those other retail places are open. I'm just asking.
I understand. So I won't speak for the applicant. However, I believe she would be open to that. Now, with the conditional use permit, I believe you should have, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, you should have the ability in your motion to require, or on the condition of, that all deliveries not be made on Main Street or within certain hours.
Yes, that is something that we could add to the language of the ordinance. include it in your motion. And I would also like to note that the ordinance in your packet has till midnight every night. I wasn't aware that Friday, Saturday, 2 a.m. But if you want to recommend the hours that are in the staff report, include that in your motion also. We can change that in the text before the ordinance is signed.
Further questions for Mr. Medina?
JC, the only concern I'd have on the requirement is, I mean, I think we need to have a general understanding, but there may be some deliveries that wouldn't be able to be on the side street. You know, so I don't know what that would be necessarily. I hear where you're coming from, but that'd be my only concern. You know what I mean? As far as certain delivery companies, Glazers may be able to go to the back alley, Glazers may be able to go to the side, but then depending on who she's using for all services, that, you know, maybe required when feasible or something. I don't know.
Yeah, required may be too strong.
Yeah, you know, somewhere in between. But I know where you're going. Not in disagreement by any means.
And so what wording are we looking for, Julie?
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Side
complicate it.
street deliveries?
I know some of those delivery companies are difficult,
When
you know.
possible, or, you know, when you really think about it, that parking on Fannin is pretty well always filled up.
I know.
That's a very busy corner there. So are alley deliveries not possible?
One recommendation which might be worth pursuing would be maybe the applicant, and we can speak with Fred Pickleton and see if he'd be willing to offer some sort of access easement to the applicant, whether that's something, I mean, that's of course a private matter, but I think there should be plenty of room if that's an option that you know, if he wants to be neighborly, they can look at as well. That's something the city can't offer, but it's just a suggestion.
In regards to the side street, if you put "if possible," that becomes very difficult to enforce, or for code enforcement or law enforcement to know when to write a ticket for violating the ordinance, because who's going to prove whether it was possible or not? It might be easier to be more specific and say, you know, if the delivery vehicle is a size that can fit on the side street. But again, I mean, that gives you a little bit more certainty, but still, someone's gonna have to prove a truck out front couldn't fit down the alley to enforce that as well.
How do other people downtown, other businesses get their goods? Domino's, Tivoli's, they've got to use, there's got to be some way they're getting them.
So, I'm just looking out the window here in City Hall. What we've seen here is Domino's will pull up here. I think this is Rusk. But lately, they've actually started utilizing the alleyway as well, or they'll park further along that way, kind of towards the Chestnut side. When they first started, they were using Main Street, but then I think themselves, they realized that was probably a bad idea, just in terms of safety for their crews.
I just wouldn't want to make it more difficult on this business if the other businesses kind of have more leeway. And I'm sure this applicant's going to get way less deliveries than Domino's is going to get, you know, dough or whatever they get delivered. But
Well, and
that would be
one
my
thing,
worry.
Mayor, one thing, I have dealt with this before, and I think our ultimate goal as we continue to work up Main Street is to make the alleys accessible for those deliveries to occur. I mean, that just needs to be one of our priorities in that process, and I know we're already addressing that in the 100, 200 blocks. But you're right, Brian, you can't make it more difficult than necessary.
I think raising awareness of the use of the alleys is important, and that is going to happen organically as the Main Street program continues. So, you know, I think our long-term goal is that we're not going to, we want to impact other businesses as little as possible when we're making those deliveries. We certainly do not want to in any way make it more difficult for urban bourbon, for sure, you know. So,
Well, Mayor, maybe just this conversation occurring can help us raise awareness on Main Street for all of our business owners, just encourage them to try to work together and try to keep them blocking Main Street, instead of putting a restriction on one.
I think that's the
That'd be
right
okay?
direction. And,
We'll make Donna's the delivery police. No problem.
and we can, thank you, Donna, for raising your hand.
Mike, you got a new deputy.
I think perhaps we're trying to anticipate a problem that we really don't know yet is gonna be there. So if we do arrive at that problem, then we address it at the time, and I think that will be no issue whatsoever, because everybody wants there to be, space available for the businesses on Main Street, because that's what makes it work, so, okay. Any more discussion? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on behalf of this agenda item? There being none, this public hearing is closed. Any further discussion?
I think it's gonna be a great business. The building looks beautiful. Wonderful job on the remodel out front.
A motion from council.
Mayor, I move to approve a conditional use permit for a bar at the subject property pending final legal review, with the caveat that hours until midnight on Friday and Saturday be approved. I mean, excuse me, until 2. On Friday and Saturday, sorry, be approved.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Hander and a second by Councilmember Greenleaf. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 5C, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and take action on an ordinance amending the zoning of Lot 4, Block 4, Sunnyside Edition of Denison, Texas, more commonly known as 810 West Coffin Street, from commercial to single-family 5, case number 2020-118Z. Mr. Medina.
Hello again. It's case number 2020-118Z. The applicant's requesting to rezone the property from commercial to single-family 5. 2018 comprehensive plan shows this area to be developed as a neighborhood. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval on November 10th, 2020. While our map lines are a little bit canted, I went ahead and outlined it in yellow. It's the house, like as mentioned, outlined in yellow. It's already developed as a single-family residence. We already have individuals that have rented it out. The cause for this request is the applicant's trying to sell the property. However, because of the current zoning, they're having, I guess, title issues, insurance issues and such. So this is the subject property here. The dark purple is commercial. All the yellow is single-family 5. There is light industrial to the rear. That's an existing, I believe it's a recycling collection station. However, the rest of the neighborhood, primarily zoned residential, also is developed in residential. You can see all the single-family homes here and some duplexes. So I'm present for any questions that you may have. I do not see the applicant here, but we do recommend approval, and this is a public hearing.
Questions for Mr. Medina?
I know this house is a little bit older, a year or two older, but our process now, correct, is to look at the zoning of a property before we issue a building permit. Is that right? We kind of changed that way. That way we don't have this situation, it's handled before the house is built.
That's correct.
It's a little too late. I mean, I agree, this should definitely be a neighborhood and be a home there. It's just, we're late to the party there. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. That was our process now.
Yeah, I've got several, a lot of the rezones that have come before this body, we've kind of had to hit the brakes and say you can't really build there just yet for this reason, because now they can't sell it.
Further questions for Mr. Medina? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on behalf of this agenda item? There being none, the public hearing is closed. Discussion from council. A motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the ordinance amending the zoning of the subject property from commercial to single-family 5 zoning district.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Adams and a second by Councilmember Spiegel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion Considerations, 6A, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on an ordinance approving initial zoning and rezoning of 2 acres, more or less, located at 2101 Knight Road, Denison, Texas, and described as G-0781 Manning, JM, A-G0781 for a zoning change from the current zoning classification of commercial district to multifamily 2 district for approximately 1.15 acres of the property, and to initially zone approximately 0.850 acres of the property as multifamily 2 district, so that the entire 2 acres, more or less, is zoned multifamily 2. Case number 2020-087Z. Mr. Medina, you're up again. You are a popular man tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be up again. And as you can tell, our esteemed city attorney definitely wrote that title for us. The applicant's pursuing the development of an approximately 30-unit multifamily project development. The applicant's requesting that 2101 Knight Road be rezoned so that the entire piece is zoned multifamily 2. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval on October 13th. The Denison City Council tabled the item on October 19th. The reason this was tabled was we did receive some opposition from the neighbors, therefore requiring that a supermajority vote be required to adopt the zoning. This project was part of a larger or multi-part, multi-item discussion where that triangular piece that's kind of cut off, that's technically outside of city limits. So at the October 19th meeting, that piece was annexed and was initially zoned for multifamily 2. So this item is to rezone the piece that's inside the city limits, 2101 Knight Road. The public hearing occurred at our last meeting, and the public hearing was closed. This is the subject property. This is the zoning. As you can see here, the current map wouldn't show that it's outside the city limits, but I felt like it was appropriate to still use this to demonstrate the site. This is a preliminary concept or site plan, what the applicant's proposing. You can see that we have 4 buildings. I have some more details in my staff report regarding the size and scope of the project. The applicant has mentioned to me that they met with a neighbor and are going to move building 5 closer south, closer to Knight Road, to try and preserve some of or just to be a good neighbor with their adjacent properties. I'm present for any questions that you may have, and the applicant, they are here as well. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Medina? Mr. Fred Stevens? Yes, ma'am. You asked to make public comments, sir? Could you come forward and state your name and address for the record, please?
Ma'am, my name is Fred Stevens. My wife and I live at 2169 Knight Road, which is the property just west of the proposal here. I spent some time speaking with Mr. Shibley earlier tonight, the applicant. He's addressed some of our concerns. The only thing that I'm left with is the traffic that's going to be coming down that road. And I know there was a discussion at one time that they were going to widen the road up to the eastern edge of our property. So my concern is just traffic. Is there any discussion that would increase the width of that road throughout the length of Knight Road? Or is it just going to be up to the eastern edge of our property? Does anyone know?
Mr. Rex, can you address that, please, sir?
Yeah, I can. So there's not a requirement that the applicant widen the road. It will generate additional traffic volume for sure, not to an amount that would sort of trigger an improvement there. We have talked with Public Works about improving the road so it's just more drivable, and so it's on our list now of streets to improve in the future. So that will help the drivability of it. As far as capacity, really a two-lane road, widening it or anything like that isn't going to add capacity. If you go up to 4 lanes, certainly that would, but this project would not warrant that. So it is on our list of improved streets now, and we'll work with our public works team to see that through.
So that would be an improvement throughout the entire length, east to west, all the way over to Teresa? Or just
We're still looking at exactly how much to improve, but focused around the project specifically toward Texoma Parkway is kind of what we would target first. The other thing that we don't want to do is, if you improve it all the way through, then it really becomes an attractive street for folks to go more westward, which would impact you and the other neighbors there. I think we want to push people to Texoma Parkway as the main thoroughfare to get around town versus kind of cutting through Knight Road. So we'll take that into consideration as well.
No, sir, I would agree with you. If I understood Mr. Shipley correctly, they were going to market their property towards the professional people at nurses, doctors at the hospital. And they're going to find out that road cuts through and comes in the back way. So if you improve the eastern edge of it, hopefully it would keep that traffic over there as opposed to coming right in front of our gate. We have a private drive, and that's my concern.
Yeah, we definitely would push people to Texoma Parkway down to 691 as a better route.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, thank you.
All right, Mr. Stevens, thank you very much, sir. Questions from council? Discussion? A motion?
Mayor, I move to approve an ordinance initially zoning approximately .85 acres to multifamily 2 and rezoning of 2101 Knight Road from commercial to multifamily 2 so that the entire 2.0 acres more or less is zoned multifamily 2, MF-2 district.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Adams and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Godey. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 6B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a resolution for the creation of tax increment reinvestment zone number 4. Mr. Rex.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you'll recall, back at the June budget workshop, I introduced the idea of creating a new tax increment reinvestment zone. At the time, it was just a single zone. We're now looking at 2 zones, really split down 75. And so I want to revisit that and recommend that we start the process for that tonight by passing a resolution that would call a public hearing and direct the staff to work on a project and financing plan for what will be TERS number 4 and TERS number 5. So I'm going to kind of present them together. I know they're separate agenda items, but they're really kind of tied together in how we're approaching it. This may look familiar from our workshop in June, basically just kind of how we're breaking down the TERS. When the city gets property tax revenue, it either goes into a maintenance and operation fund, which is the largest part of that revenue, or an interest and sinking fund to pay off debt. On the maintenance and operation side, the fund, generally property tax revenue goes into the general fund. When we create a tax increment reinvestment zone, we set up a separate fund that receives revenue from property tax on increment on property within that zone. And then that revenue can be used to cover developer costs or city costs related to development or infrastructure, any kind of cost that is incurred in that tax increment reinvestment zone. The other thing to note on here is that the county can participate in a tax increment reinvestment zone as well, and they have in our 3 current TERS, and we've also talked to them about participating in these TERS number 4 and 5 as well. All right, getting ahead here, holy cow. I don't know what that is. I guess we've got some time bomb or something going on.
I was about to explode.
So a little bit of background and context behind why we're desiring to create a TERS here. One is that we still have a large demand for new housing and specifically creating new building lots. I think the last real estate report for Denison area said that we've got about under 2 months worth of supply in our housing pipeline. So again, lots of demand for housing. We want to try to encourage the development of additional building lots. There's plenty of land, particularly in these two areas. That land is a little difficult to develop due to topography, drainage, the lack of utility access, street connectivity, those sorts of things. So we want a funding mechanism basically to allow us to go in and make those improvements as they're needed. Under normal circumstances, those development costs for infrastructure are significant. For this, the topography we have in these areas, drainage and the other issues, it really becomes a hindrance, and so we just need a funding mechanism to help encourage development in these areas. In addition, the 75 corridor, as you know, is going to be widened within the next 5 years, 5 to 10 year window. It may be that TxDOT asks for city participation on those projects, and so we want to have a bucket of money ready to help fund those projects. So for example, some of the things that the TERS could fund, arterial or connector streets to connect a larger network of roads through neighborhoods. The US 75 and Spur 503 interchange, that's part of what will be rebuilt when 75 is widened through Denison. Again, we want to be able to participate in that, maybe upgrade amenities and signage and different things through there so the TERS can help fund those projects. And then of course amenities such as the Katy Trail or stormwater management, regional detention basins, that sort of thing can be funded through the TERS. Chris, can you advance it? It's not. There we go. So specifically, again, we've split the super TERS that we had before at the June workshop into 2 TERS, number 4 and 5. 4 covers west of 75. It's about 1,800 acres. Some of it's existing residential in neighborhoods. I take this opportunity to point out, and especially to our residents, that the TERS does not add a new tax to your property. It simply diverts the tax that you're already going to be paying into a special fund that can be used to improve infrastructure and other projects in the TERS area. That's something that we want to make clear as well. So TERS number 4, about 1,800 acres, 600 parcels. The base value right now, based on what we calculated, is about $90 million. TERS number 5, which is east of 75, you'll notice that the shape looks a lot different now. We trimmed out most of the existing neighborhoods because when you create a TERS, it can't have more than a 1/3 or 30% residential existing. So we trimmed those out, and then we also included, and this was related to another agenda item on our agenda tonight, the former TMC site north of town, along with some vacant land kind of north and east of that area, the Washington Heights area, which we've gotten a lot of inquiries over, and that outlying area kind of north and west of Munson Park. So TERS number 5 ends up being pretty large. It's similar in size to the Preston Harbor TERS number 2 that we created. So 3,200 acres. It's about 22% residential right now, 2,000 parcels, and $138 million in taxable value. That's a little bit less than TERS number 3 in terms of value in TERS number 5. Next slide, please. There we go. Another thing I wanted to point out, so this lists all of the TERS that have been created and then the 2 proposed ones. State requires that you cannot have more than 50% of your total taxable value in TERS districts. And so, of course, we wanted to check that box, make sure we were under that. We're at about 30% based on the latest values for all of our TERS districts there. So wanted to share that as well. I think I have one more slide.
better hurry, because I think we're gonna.
So I think y'all put that on there so I can go faster, but I'm gonna go slower. From a timeline standpoint, so how the process works is the City Council will consider the resolution, calling a public hearing, and preparation of the project and financing plan tonight. Between now and the next council meeting, we would prepare that project and financing plan. I'll tell you, it's mostly complete, so we'll have that ready in time for the December 7th meeting, when you'll consider an ordinance that would actually create the TERS. And then on the December 8th County Commissioners Court meeting, we plan to request participation on both TERS for the county to participate in those as well. One difference that these TERS will have versus our other ones, Gateway Village, which is TERS number 1, is specifically for the Gateway Village development. And so how the project plan lays out for that is that all the TERS revenue basically goes back to the developer to offset their cost of infrastructure and public improvements. Some of it's coming back to the city for administrative costs and THF Park, but for the most part it goes to the developer. Similar for Preston Harbor, it's going to be the same way. TERS 4 and 5, we're really splitting the kind of the proceeds in the TERS between the developer so that we have some incentives we can offer for development, and then the city will get 50% of that to go towards infrastructure, off-site improvements, utility extensions, kind of larger public works projects that are necessary for development as well. So a little bit different project and financing plan than we've done in the past, but certainly within the scope of what we can do in the TERS. So excited to present you with those on December 7th. So with that, I can answer any questions you have. Again, 2 separate agenda items, 2 resolutions, one each for TERS 4 and TERS 5, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Rex? Discussion from council? A motion on 6B.
Mayor, I move to approve the resolution setting a public hearing under section 311.003 of the Texas Tax Code for the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone number 4 within the city of Denison, Texas.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Crawley and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Doty. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was it you?
It was
Oh,
Mr. Spiegel.
okay, I'm rewinding. There was a motion by Councilmember Crawley and a second by Councilmember Spiegel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's these masks, they just really create a habit.
Call it muffle mouth.
Okay. And a motion on 6C.
Mayor, I move to approve the resolution setting a public hearing under section 311.003 of the Texas Tax Code for the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone number 5 within the city of Denison, Texas.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Hander and a second by Councilmember Adams. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 6D, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on converting 2 part-time communications specialist positions into 1 full-time position. Chief Gudgel.
Come on up here.
We just expect him to be up here, don't we?
He's so good at it. Good evening, Council, Mayor. Coming to you tonight in reference to, currently we have 2 part-time communication specialist positions. It takes a lot of training. We put just as much money into part-timers as we do our full-timers. Because of that short amount of time that they're there, it really becomes kind of tough on us to be able to get them everything they need in a short period of time. We've done some surveying and determined that if we put this position on in January, because of the salary savings from October to January, we can bring on a full-time position without affecting our 2020-2021 budget. Ultimately, our goal for our communication center is to have 3 seated. 1 would be a call taker, 1 would be dedicated to fire and EMS, and 1 to police. it just makes sense. A lot of cross calls coming in during our busy period of time. If we can have those concentrated on both fire and EMS and police, it would be much more practical. So we're coming to you tonight to see if we can put those two into one, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Chief Gudgel?
So you have 2 or 3 now?
We have 2 part-time positions currently.
But you said you wanted 1 for each?
No. We just want to pull those 2 into one to make a full-time position instead of the 2 part-time.
How many total though do you have?
Ma'am?
How many total do you have? You said you wanted 1 for calls coming in, 1 for fire.
Yeah, right now, we just currently, most of the time, we just have 2 in there, and they're manning the telephones and they're dispatching the calls. If we can bring, and over time, as we grow, hopefully we see more inside our communication center. But right now, if we have that body, definitely during our busy periods of time, they can be more of a call taker instead of a dispatcher.
Further questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Discussion from council?
Saw Renee shake her head, so I know it's budget wise.
Oh, trust me.
If she shook her head, it's a good.
Budget neutral.
Yep.
That's what Renee likes, okay. Yes,
I move to approve the request to convert 2 part-time communication specialist positions into 1 full-time position.
Second.
there was a motion by Councilmember Greenleaf and a second by Councilmember Crawley. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. There you go, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6E, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on authorizing fiscal year 2020 end-of-year budget amendments. Ms. Wagner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My IT director back there has told me to get busy because we don't want this to crash. So here we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm glad to be here, glad to finally give you a presentation for the budget for fiscal year 20. Laurie Alsabog, always like to give her credit. She's over the accounting division, and her team have really been working steadily since the end of September to get this information ready for us to present. Let's go. Let's see here. Okay. Our agenda item, though, is to receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on authorizing the end-of-year budget amendments. But before we do that, I kind of want to give you a summary of what has occurred in 2020. If you're not aware, we had some concerns. And I want to talk about those and then talk about moving forward with fiscal year 2021. So council did approve reduced expenses for this budget back in July, if you remember that, back on July 13th. And then, of course, our fiscal year ended September 30th. We close out during October, part of November. We have cash positions to talk to you about this evening as of 9:30, and then, like I said, where we go in 2021. And then we will ask for approval of those budget amendments for 2020. This has already occurred, can't go back and change it, so we need to talk about it and where we go from here. Okay, I've got lots of notes, so I'm going to try to talk really fast. Okay, this first slide here is your expenses, general fund, and utility fund. And so we started out last September 2019, council approved the original fiscal year 20 budget. So general fund, you can see there a little over 29.5 million was budgeted, amended back in July of this year, amended those expenses down to 28.8 million. And we actually came in at 28.9. So general fund, the actual versus amended is 88,471. So pretty close. We came pretty close to our amended budget, right? But what we have to do for auditors is to do a budget amendment to the original budget, or to the amended budget for those. So even though you see here, those top where you see EOC, that's your General Fund Emergency Operations Center. We had some costs in there. Okay, do you have it in front of you? Do you have anything in front of you? Okay.
You paint the picture for us.
I will paint the picture. I will paint the picture, and I'm very dramatic, drama club, right? I did that in high school, so. Okay, So what we have here is we have budget amendments that have to be made, expensed versus what we amended in July, right? Now, right here, I have $406,000 worth of budget amendments, but we also had divisions that were under budget, which gets us to only being over $88,000 for our expenses to budget. Does that make sense? Okay, because our overage is $400,000, but we had some under that was 300 and something, 320,000, okay? Now, utility fund. We had an original budget of expenses of $13.8 million. When we amended the budget in July, we went down to $13.3 million. So we reduced the $500 and something thousand. We came in at 13.4, so we were about 107,000 over what we had amended. But still really good when we started out with these budgets here. We amended them, we reduced expenses quite a bit, requested our staff to really, get down and dirty and find some money, right? And do our best with what we have, and I think they did a really good job. But we still have to approve these. There's $226,925 of amendments that have to be approved. Obviously, we weren't over $226,000, we were over 107, so there were some divisions that were under their amended budgets for expenses. Okay? My next slide is... Pardon?
Would have been.
Would have been. It's the revenue side, general fund and utility fund. And so let's talk general fund. General fund, our original budget was almost 29.6 million was our original projections for revenue for fiscal year 20. We didn't make any budget amendments in July for revenue because we were very optimistic, right? But we projected to be about 28.6 million. So, we about $900,000 less, right? Actual budget, we were at 28.4. So actually, we were about 156,000 less than what we had projected for our budget. And the budget amendments for revenue are actually the revenues we generated versus the original budget, because we didn't adopt amended budget on revenues, okay? Only on expenses. And so we have, so our actual versus projected, let me go back to that real quick. Our actual versus projected was only off 156,000. So we really, when we worked through the budget together and in our June workshop, and we talked through it in each of our meetings in July and August, we really kind of hit the nail on the head with our projections. But we have to do our amendments to our original budget, okay? And so we have in total 2.1 million in revenue that came under. Once again, though, we also had revenue that came over, and we don't do amendments for those. So our total difference of revenue actual versus original was down 1.1 million. Nothing that we did not anticipate, a lot of it due to COVID. We adjusted for that when we were looking at the budget this summer. We adjusted for that, and we prepared ourselves by reducing expenses and projecting lower revenues, okay? But we still have to do these amendments for auditors because that was the original budget. All right, utility, it's gonna get better, I promise. All right? It's gonna get better. I say the best for last. Utility fund revenue, we budgeted the original budget that was approved last September of 13.9 million. We projected to only be about 13.5 million. We came in at 14 million. So we actually had an increase of about $500,000 over our original budget. So that's awesome news for the utility side. We did have some amendments though to revenue, because we asked council to approve expenses over 5,000 within each division and revenues under 50,000. So there were just a couple of line items in utility fund that were under that were over the 50,000 that they came in under, and so we have to approve those. So it was about 186,000. But obviously revenues, a lot more revenues came in over to give us that net of 509,000. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is general fund cash position. Oh, yes. Yes, awesome. Okay, good. Because this was a lot of work for our county division, and I didn't want it to go to waste. They did a lot of work on these numbers for us. You've seen these slides before during our budget workshop and then during council meetings, but we originally began with $4.8 million in general fund. And you see the numbers there. I've kind of talked a little bit about those. You have your original budgeted numbers. We anticipated ending at 64 days of reserve, with revenues being over expenses by $13,000 and some change, right? Then in July, when we amended the expenses, we still had the original revenues, but we had projections, so we used those projections. We projected that we'd probably be in the red, $189,000, and at 60 days. If you recall, that's the last presentation I believe we did in September, as I reminded you, based on our amended expenses and our projected revenues, we would be in the red, $189,000. Based on where we were at in our cash position, September 30th, we were actually in the red, $434,911. So we were down to 55 days of reserve, okay? But it gets better, because we're going to talk about what caused that, okay? Next, the utility fund cash position. Again, original fiscal year 20, we started off with $2.3 million, total revenues budgeted 13.9, expenses 13.8. We anticipated 66 days of reserve, with revenues being about $66,000 over expenditures. Our amended budget with amended expenses that were approved by council, the original revenue, we anticipated being in the black about $127,000 at 69 days. We actually the actual fiscal year 20 budget is we are in the black $528,000 with 76 days in the utility fund. So looking really good in utility fund. And I will have to say, in the general fund, I will give some comment there that the general fund, let me find my notes here. To me, I attribute the general fund loss to the decrease in revenue. Our people really did good about cutting their expenses, but it was the decrease in revenue was the large portion of that. The utility fund, I feel like the reason we were able to gain so much is because the decrease in expenditures. And we had some revenue increase, but really the cost cutting is what helped us in the water sewer side and the utility fund. I wanted to mention that. All right, now, the title of this is Fiscal Year 2020 Budget Update, Good News Over the Horizon, right? It's been a rough year, and but we've made it through 2020, and we anticipate things looking better, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Most of you know about the CARES Act funds. I will tell you that we are eligible, let me just start off with this, for $1.4 million, okay, in CARES Act funding. What I am using is the $726,000 that we have submitted to date for reimbursement. Okay, that's what we have submitted. So we anticipate at least $726,000 to be reimbursed during fiscal year 21, with approximately $578,900 going back into the general fund for expenses already incurred. So these are either purchases we made or personnel time that has been expensed due to COVID-19. $125,000 of that $726,000 we've already promised to DISD for the Texas Education Association Operation Connectivity Grant. That's going to purchase some Chromebooks and hotspots to support DISD's at-home learners and those without internet access. That's kind of our partnership with Denison ISD. And then $22,000 we promised to Meals on Wheels for a freezer. So that leaves us about $578,900 going back in the general fund. Based on projections or our expenses for one day for a general fund of $82,265 there at the bottom, that $578,000 will add 7 days back to your days of reserve. So now we're at 60 because we anticipated a slight loss in 21, but well, no, the expenses are a little higher for 21, so we were going to be at 54 days instead of 55 based on the higher expenses. This will put us at 61 days, okay, once we get those funds back. The next thing is that TASWA, I know that the mayor was involved in this, and we anticipate don't anticipate, we actually received, hand-delivered Friday, Denison's member distribution to be $510,972. We have received that check. We did not budget for that revenue, so that's pretty awesome. That will, if we place both in fund balance, the money from CARES Act, the TASL funds that were not anticipated, so therefore we did not budget for that. Of course, it can be used at the discretion of council, as always, but if it goes into the general fund balance, barring any other issues, we will have about 67 days of reserve at fiscal year end. So not too bad, you know, based on the year we just finished. So looking forward to some good news in 2021 for sure. And that is really the presentation that I have for you this evening. Once again, budget amendments must be approved. Obviously, the expenses and revenue have already taken place, but we have to present that information to council for you to see what has happened, ask questions, go over all of that, and then get those approved.
Well, I think the important thing that we need to remember here is that the shortfall is directly related to COVID. That's why we have it, and it's reimbursable. And so that money is coming back. So our citizens need to know that money is coming back and will not, although the shortfall happened in 2020, in 2021, it's coming back to us. And our reserves will be back where we anticipate they should be. So.
And that number I gave you, like I said, is based on just the dollar amount that we have already submitted. We're going to be making more submissions, so there should be hopefully another $600,000 on top of that. But you know me, I'm very conservative.
I was going to say, you know, Renee, she's not going to overestimate. So
No.
She's going to make sure that she's made a very conservative calculation. So I think that although it is something that has to be approved, I think we should know that we know exactly why we're there. We
Right.
know exactly why
Right.
Why it happened. And so, questions for Renee?
I'd just like to say thank you for you and your team and all the hard work you put in for this. 'Cause I know it's not been easy.
No, you're welcome. I thank my team and it takes everyone here really. It took all of staff to really knuckle down. I know when Judd requested everyone to cut 5 to 10%, it was not easy. And hopefully when we build up our fund balances, we can get back on track and continue to do those things that we wanted to do moving forward. So, but thank you.
And just in case anybody doesn't understand, this has been a 20-year journey with Tazewell, Denison being one of the 3 member cities of that organization. And this is the first ever gain-sharing distribution out of Tazewell to the 3 member cities. So it was a perfect storm, and it hit at the right time, right,
Yes.
Mr. Rex?
You got it.
And
Yes.
so the delivery of that $510,972 called for a big celebration on Friday. So I know Renee was grinning from ear to ear. So.
I wanted to frame the check and put it on the wall like the first dollar earned, but she wanted to take it to the bank.
Imagine that. We'll not frame that one, Mr. Rex.
I made a copy of it though.
We'll frame the copy.
Yes.
And I think we were very well represented by our mayor in those negotiations.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
It's my pleasure. All right. If there are no questions for Renee, I will entertain a motion from council.
Mayor, I move that we approve the year-end budget amendment for fiscal year 20.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Greenleaf and a second by Councilmember Spiegel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Renee, to you and your team. So, Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting to receive legal advice from its attorney on any posted agenda item as permitted by law, or to discuss the following. Consult with attorney on a matter in which the attorney's duty to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct conflicts with this chapter, and/or consult with attorney about pending or contemplated litigations or contemplated settlement of the same, section 551.071. Consult with city attorney regarding a potential property lease and related contracts. Discuss the possible purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of value of real property, and public discussion of such would not be in the best interest of the city's bargaining position, section 551.072. Discuss potential property lease and related contracts. Discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment of duties, discipline or dismissal of, or to hear a complaint against a public officer or employee, section 551.074. Discuss the city manager position. The time is now 7:16.